Alright, so this is something that's kind of gotten me, I don't know, outright annoyed in a while. And I think a lot of other people would be annoyed if they're in a similar position to me or someone else, whatever. Anyway, to point down to it, this video is about emo and what emo really is versus what emo isn't. And pretty much the short thing that I can say is the name in itself makes people cringe so bad because it has become the most bastardized music genre of everything, to the point where everything that it stands for, to when most people hear that word, they don't even think of music. They think of someone cutting themselves, they think of just like mental problems, depression, suicide, just endless whining, and the whole, you know, like the one image look with like all the kids or the guys like being gay, and then having makeup and, you know, hair that I kind of have, and other types of stuff like that, and then like the, you know, the vice versa thing with the girls or whatever. Anyway, so that is like, when people hear the word emo, that's what people think. But the funny thing is that no one understands is that if you actually know emo bands, none of them look like that, and none of them are that, or ever looked like that, or did anything like that, or said anything like that. No. So, before you write emo off, very terribly so, and unjustly so, it is actually a very great music genre in punk, and it is very much punk rock. Now, it is not the Sex Pistols' Anarchy in the UK kind of punk rock. It is not writing to your Congress and getting people voted out of office punk rock. And it's definitely not beating people up and stuff, which is what punk rock isn't meant to be about, but what some people think punk rock is, who came into that in the 80s. The whole point of why emo started was to get rid of those scumbags that was ruining the original hardcore scene that was fun for those people. You know, like, fuck this, you know, people are getting beat up and all the time, and now there's people trying to treat this like this is a gang mentality or something, and we just wanted to come to these shows and play music and have fun and create good art and, you know, create something, not destroy people. You know, so emo was thus created, and it was actually created in the area where I live in, which is the Baltimore, D.C. area is actually where it's pretty much started. Proto-emo started in other places. Like, I consider Husker Du to be very hugely a proto-emo band, because that, especially by the time Zen Arcade, Metal Circus, and even some of the more melodic tracks, even going back to the Everything Falls Apart compilation, even starts to be in a genre. So what emo actually talks about is about the whole point of it was actually to diffuse violence, but it wasn't necessarily like in a hippie way of like ignoring things. It was to try to express what punk hasn't yet been able to express quite in a certain direct. Instead of making everything about necessarily the outer world in a political, very political schema, it ended up just starting to be dealing about basically like taking your journal and then go writing lyrics from your journal, or like in that way, and then making, yet again, like punk does, a bold statement, but a bold statement that's honest, that is more from the introverted, personal angle, instead of being so much about politics. And that could possibly include a foreign politics, but it could be like almost of anything. And all music sort of does this in general. I mean, all music is considered emotional, at least most of it, on some degree. But when that certain take is right in the forefront, it becomes emo. But then the thing is that is different about emo compared to other things is emo isn't really just one sound. It's like about 4 different sounds, and it's usually fused with something. So it started in post-hardcore. Post-hardcore was the movement to stop the original hardcore, to remove from the violence and create a new scene away from that violence, and to where people can then again be able to have this, creative space again without the violence just starting it over. Ian McKay and his other friends, comrades, and such made that a point. So, those are all bands like, Embrace, Rites of Spring, Moss Icon, Hated, Rain, Early Fugazi, and all of these people didn't want to be called emo. I believe they were probably fine with the term post-hardcore because it was considered after hardcore. And the post-hardcore name and the emo name came out at the same time, and they were being called the same thing. At the time it was emo-core instead of hardcore, but in that sense, in that time period of the mid/late 80s, post-hardcore is emo. But then later, there ended up being post-hardcore bands without really that emo sound or slant, and it just kept the qualities of what was post-hardcore. So you have the post-hardcore mix with emo, and then in the 90s, it started to be fused with pop-punk. It also started to be fused with indie rock, and like other forms of like alternative rock, but pretty much or even just with just flat-out punk. So it was always fused with punk or hardcore, which was emo and post-hardcore, or emo with pop-punk, which became emo-pop, and then there was emo with indie. So, you got your emo indie bands, Sunny Day Real Estate, Braid, Mineral, American Football, Texas to Reason, all that type of stuff. The indie pop, which is indie pop-punk with Jawbreaker, Alkaline Trio, Garden Variety. They're a little more screaming, like the Get Up Kids. Then you even have like the indie alternative rock, which was like Weezer's Pinkerton album. Pretty much just that album from Weezer for the most part with that. And then, like I said, then you also had Screamo started also in the early 90s, believe it or not in like 2000s. And then that was bands like Heroin, I Hate Myself. Then there was Hoover. Trying to think of some other ones that there was. But anyway, and then when you listen to that, I mean, that stuff, that is not wimpy music. It's very balls driven. It's very, it's very much almost, in a way, it's not very much different from regular hardcore, except the songs are a little longer and there's a little more experimentation mixed in it and the loud, soft dynamics. But it still pretty much sounds like hardcore, just the songs are longer, really. And just as far as some of the screamo stuff, and it's just way more screaming, instead of being more short. So anyway, if you look also at all these bands, the one thing about emo that also was different from all these other genres is there was no image. I guess that's why they ended up somehow creating it. They'll be like, oh, look, hey, it's been 20 years, this band doesn't have an image, so we, the media, or the Illuminati, the whatever you want to call it, of the Hollywood or media or whatever you want to paste, they'd be like, wave a wand, this is now what emo is. Everything like this is what it is, anything before, no. And that's basically what people took and believed. But if you look at all these bands, they're all dressed like normal people. Like, they look the most plain, especially the indie ones. And they pretty much really just, there was no image with emo. There was no point of an image. Image was not an importance with emo, which was actually one of the differences with emo compared especially like glam punk, where it's all image, it's all a flash, and most other type of like genres, they have like a gimmick image to it. Emo didn't have an image, and so you had people that were in emo bands that could have looked like me, and then guys that were like really masculine and really big, like the guy from Sam I Am looks like a damn lumberjack. You would never, if you were to like take a picture of him, compare it to what it was considered these people from 2005, 2006, they're nothing alike. But they're in one of the earliest emo bands, which was especially with the pop punk slant, one of the earliest and longevious, because they're still playing and still have written all this stuff. So people bash emo, and I really get pissed about it because I understand them bashing what they're saying emo is that they see, but that's not what emo is. But there's no way that myself or, anyone can really prove such a thing, because, the original Forerunners, pretty much everyone that was in a legitimate position, didn't want to take that label. They just didn't like the label, just want to avoid it. Call us whatever you want. So that was kind of, may in a sense been part of a problem, why maybe the term was hijacked, but I'm sure that those people probably don't really care. But, I don't know, it just gets me really upset, because people don't understand it, and I really hate when people are completely retarded and talking really retarded, and they have no idea what they're saying. So, before you bash on emo, you should go actually read up about emo, real emo bands, starting from '86, moving on forward, and then decide for yourself if it's actually bad to you. And if you're in a list of emo bands, and you're looking at something that says, like, Black Veil Brides is the kings of emo, and that's all you need to listen to, yeah, you're on the wrong list. That's not emo. Asking Alexandria and stuff, that's not emo. In fact, that was like a metal sound. Like, yeah, that's the thing. Okay, like, it's such a sad thing. And even these Christian rock bands have stolen the genre just because they're emotional, praying to God. Does not mean it's emo music. That's contemporary rock worship music. That is not emo music. And if you go on the Wikipedia list, like 1/3 of the bands are those bands, which is sad that it's lumped in being called it. So basically, you have to really search out what it is if you really want to actually know what emo is. But if not, you could be like every other dumb person in America and just type in Google images and see people cutting themselves, being like, that's what emo is. That's not what emo is. Thank you very much.